I would imagine Bruce's recommendation.
Yeah, I think that would probably be like a reasonable first step,
Hey,
right?
Michael.
I mean. It's really artificial.
I'm up in this way, but just wanted to double check with you before we ran a meeting in that direction.
We should still, keep the standard.
Yeah.
The paper electronic application.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important because the first group had to.
Yeah.
Right, and then, but I think it would be great to actually have.
Yeah. Yeah, and apparently Sophie was saying that's how the library trustees work, is that they recommend new members to join the trustees, and so this could be similar to that.
Yeah, that's how.
Yeah.
It's like they.
Lauren told me about
Like, eventually and they.
that's right.
Like. Yeah, I think that's probably.
Right.
Yeah. Sure.
So
Yeah.
I get enough. And
Nice to see you.
Hey, Arthur.
Good to see you again. We've met before, but I didn't place in when I saw your application to be on this committee, I couldn't remember, I didn't match my face, but I do know you. It's nice to meet you.
Same here. Are you sworn?
No, this is Miss Ward, who is in the orange shirt over to where. I'm Sonia Berthasell.
Oh, that was Miss Ward.
That's Miss Ward.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, really good.
How are you?
We are looking for new members, and so you have to arrive at a one time.
Good.
Yeah.
Just sit up there and like.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I'm enjoy it.
Yeah, so I think what the process is gonna look like is there's like an existing group of like half a committee that got seated.
Sweet.
And they're gonna like suggest that it gets opened up probably to some new members joining the committee, and they can recommend names to the town council, and then the town council votes, puts a stamp of approval on it. So like if these folks all meet like potential new folks who want to join today and are like, sounds good, then you all could recommend all these cool new folks if we want to do that. So that's, am I explaining this process in a way that feels accurate to everyone here?
I wasn't tuning in completely
Okay.
until later. So
Okay, well, I think that's accurate.
Yeah. And who's the town council? They're not.
Yeah, so this is like a advisory group to the town council. So I'm on the town council and I'm the liaison from the town council to here. So I hang out on this committee as like a committee member, but also it's my job to report back to the town council. And then Jeff is also happens to be council chair and is here
Nice to
to
meet you.
participate because he knows about diversity and inclusion.
I don't.
Yeah,
know
the purple
like,
doesn't-
sort of popping in once
Does
in a
that
while.
just kind of happen sometimes?
it depends on the brand.
That's about 70% of myself, so don't think I'm.
So,
This is a conversational topic that we're.
Hello.
awesome.
When we left off during our event.
Friends who are formerly on the committee. I
I
wonder
was
what y'all
hoping on.
think about,
Could kind of
did we
bring them up.
like invite people who are here in the audience to come sit with us at this table?
The other thing I would be happy to do is to take these and turn them into notes.
Separation.
So that,
Everyone think.
Audience, what we feel right.
Okay. That's awesome.
Enough chairs.
I will-
fine.
Enough chairs.
I'm comfortable with.
Folks joining?
If they want to. Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm also happy to move over there and fill in. Like to do that?
I think we're good for now. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see, it'll be fine.
Yeah, whoever wants to join. can
Or-
join.
At least.
So folks who are like out here in the audience, we just checked in with folks who are kind of like formally on the committee and we're like, do we need to have this barrier between folks? It's kind of an informal community meeting. So if any of you would like to come sit at the round table and be part of a slightly more intimate conversation, you're invited to, but also don't feel pressure. Come on up, Sam.
You know you want to, Sam.
Yeah, they're literally the right chairs.
Yeah, wherever you like. So
I'll just sit back here and let you guys chat.
and Michael, are you down to
Good, how are you?
facilitate this meeting?
Yeah,
Somewhere cool. All right.
so I'll, Basically, meeting is going to start. Let's go. All right. So last time we had our meet and greet event where we ate a lot of chips and we loved it and we talked to people. And honestly, I loved that event. I felt like I didn't really know where I wanted my expectations to sit, so I was just going into it as is. But I felt like I didn't have a ton of conversations, but the conversations that I did have, I think were incredibly important and gave me great feedback for, I think, what we were looking at community wise. And it kind of piqued people's interest, and I'd seen in a couple of groups that I am in, / like heard through the grapevine that people have kind of had a conversation about us, which I think is great. Because it means that we're starting to integrate ourselves in a different way than just sort of, again, the cloud of the DEIB. So we had them, we had some stuff laid out both from the first kind of introductory idea that the town had, and then the ad hoc setup. We had that posted at the event. We took down some things that people wanted to see, what people wanted to say, and kind of brief blurbs and stuff like that. And I think a lot of what we're looking at now is how can we either like get more information from the community, or we're gonna get that. All right. How can we get more information from the community that's more up to date? Because of course, we have your absolutely amazing results, but I do think obviously within the time of then to now, it's good to get an update. Overall, I think having a conversation about what we think going forward is like kind of our best course of action. Like we talked about obviously pivoting from like the more intimate event that we had where it was just like the meet and greet to something like as we're scaling up as the community kind of gets to know us. I think that we're in a good place.
Can I jump in with
Yeah.
a quick, so I'm looking at our little agenda for today, and that was a lovely recap of meet and greets. We do have welcome and introductions on that, and I'm curious if we could take a minute to do some intros and
Yeah.
then return to the meet and greet and what comes next question.
Yeah. So I suppose I'll start then. I am Michael, or B, like the bug. I'm they, them, and I'm a part of the committee.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leah. I go by she or they pronouns. And I am officially part of the committee, and I work as an associate professor at the University of Maine.
And I'm Malcolm Himshoot, he, him, part of the DEIB committee for what, 2 months now, 3 months? Are we on to our 3rd month?
Yeah.
So, and the we has been fluid since these 3 months started, because we knew we would like help birth something into being, but we are not the final we yet. Like, we know there's work to fill out the committee.
I'm Doug, he, him are my pronouns, and I'm retired from the university, was the director of the counseling center there for many, many years. And glad to be here.
I'm Emily. My pronouns are they, she. I'm on the committee and I'm a bike mechanic at Roses.
I'm Sam. I use she, her pronouns. I just want to see what this committee looks like. I'm considering joining if that's an option. So I'm here today.
Awesome. My name is Sonia, Bertha style, she, her pronouns. I'm a member of the town council, so I'm the town council's liaison to this group, and that means that my role is I'm not like in charge of it, but I try to be taking back things that this group might advise the town council and make sure that the town council hears about them and ensures communication flow. And I'm really passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion work. In my day job, I'm a director at the Wilson Center over on College Ave, where I get to work with amazing students from all different walks of life. You wanna bop back here?
Oh, I'm Sophie Wilson. I'm the town manager and happy to support the committee.
Thanks, Sophie. Let's introduce yourself. You can always pass.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm Danielle, and I'm actually a TA at the University of Maine. And I'm happy to be here this evening, just kind of seeing what's going on.
I'm Alan. I'm a soon to be master's graduate of the University of Maine. My pronouns are he, they, and I'm here to support my partner, Michael.
I'm Jeff, I'm him, and along with Sonia, I sit on the town council. I don't get to make all the meetings, and I have no official capacity here. I'm just really interested in DEIB issues in Orono. So.
Yeah, my name is Arthur, and I just moved down the street on Margin Street recently. And I have thought and written about I guess diversity, equity, inclusion, and I mean, my ideas, I hope are I'll be happy to share with you guys, and if you find them useful, and please, you know, I'll be happy to share more. And yeah, it just depends on if you guys will be amenable to those ideas, and otherwise it's okay. It's a pleasure just to be around you people.
Awesome. Honestly, I don't think,
And Zoom, like, do we have a way to know who's on Zoom
Yeah,
I'm
with
doing
us?
Tonight, and we do not have anybody from the public. We have one staff member.
Hello, staff member.
Hi, staff member.
hey,
Cool.
all right, well, so personally, I think that there are no bad ideas. I think that everything can be a collaborative work no matter what, and we absolutely welcome and encourage your sharing of opinions, because I think that everybody, no matter whether we're this side or this side, definitely kind of deserve to get out what you're looking for. I'd love to kind of hear everybody's thoughts on how we thought that meet and greet event went. Does anybody have any thoughts?
I was hoping more people would show up.
Understand. I think that we'll sort of become a snowball effect where once we've sort of got things in motion, they'll stay in motion.
Yeah, I think I felt similarly. I thought it was a pleasant event, and also, you know, the next time we do something, let's really like do some due diligence to be promoting and doing some community organizing around making sure that a lot of people hear about it and feel welcome to participate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the event, like slow rolling, was really nice though, because I feel like the conversations that I did get to have, I got to spend a really nice amount of time going over what I thought we were as an entity, and what I contribute to that as like an individual. And it was nice to kind of really give like that extension of trust into the community and have someone have like a very in-depth conversation with you. And I had a couple of people share really what they were hoping for in terms of what kind of they wanted us to become or what they wanted us to be in some aspect of that. And I think that it was nice because that even if it's just a little in, I think it's just enough for us to kind of go, okay, how can we use this to keep a momentum moving forward?
Did some of those conversations lead to ideas for next venues or groups or networks that would continue the conversation on belonging?
I definitely think so. I know that there was several conversations about like connecting the community via like local restaurants.
Mhm.
I know that I spoke with someone briefly who was saying that their daughter goes to Nest all the time, and Nest always has like flyers everywhere. And that would be a good place for us. And I had a couple of people talk about Family Dog, how it's a pretty like low key place, but it's still somewhere that is good for social gatherings. No voluntold like personal businesses though. But I definitely think that it measures what people want to see.
The conversations I had with community members, they seemed just really excited that we were engaged and wanting to be in the community and do activities and events. And they seemed to be pretty open-minded about what those events entailed. From my own perspective, I think that having family-oriented events might attract a lot of people, you know, having it at the library and perhaps like inviting you know, like some of the kids, if they're coming along to do story time with some people. I've noticed that, like, I had my daughter there, but there wasn't really much to do for kids. And it was kind of a missed opportunity if for the next time, like, if we can advertise more intentionally for families. So like, if it's dinner time, you know, bring your kids and there are snacks and there are books, or we'll have story time or something to that extent.
Yeah, I love that. Honestly, I think that the number of families that are in Orono, that's such like a big thing. Like there, I know that there's like endless folks who have like kids, especially right now. And I know that obviously at an event where everybody's kind of stagnant, a child is always going to be kind of moving because that's just the nature of small children. And I think that that's such a great idea because then like it widens our audience and makes sure everybody of all ages is included in somehow. Love the idea of story time. If anybody is joins Don't Creek, you're the person on story time. I don't know if we have that.
The parent thought it might be really interesting to see how to bring about the idea of multicultural literature, particularly because families are sometimes unsure of how to address that particular topic. Like, where do I find this literature? How do I engage in this literature? As a woman who identifies as mixed race, my mother is Caucasian, and she always wondered how to find the right books for me, as she mostly raised me. So I think providing that opportunity would be wonderful in conjunction with what you're saying.
I love that idea.
I love that. If you have any literature that you think it would be more important for us to highlight over any specific ones, we'd love to hear it because obviously we obviously have the ability to research and do things, but I think it also has a great amount of value to kind of get ideas on where to start from someone who seems so passionate about like getting this content to kids who need it.
Seems to me one of our roles would be to support things that are going on in the community already. And connecting maybe with the groups that are doing something. And I'm not even sure who is the sort of force behind the animals that are posted all over town that are painted various colors. So I think that was a citizens initiative, if I remember.
So I
Oh,
think
the
Tony
pride
Carter
animals?
might be a good contact. She'd probably know who was.
It's possible, so probably Sophie knows too. Would Connie be our best contact or?
Cammy has been the one that
Cammy,
I've been
okay.
contacted of, but Orono Pride, I don't know if Ash is still part of that or not, but those are the two people that I have talked with most about that.
I mean, maybe some specific invitations to folks to come and tell us what's going on, what they're doing.
Yeah.
Rather than, we don't have to reinvent it then. There's a lot going on already. And also the recent sort of notoriety the library has got. The front page story on stance on banned books. They want to be supportive of that. From what I understand, there wasn't a lot of backlash on that too, so. Anyway, I guess one job we could have is finding out what's going on and then to have someone from the committee reach out or invite people here to tell us what they're doing. So we can maybe help support and expand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it would do us some good to get involved with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion at the university, because obviously they put on quite a few events, and I think that obviously our community does involve the college students, especially since it's a college town. I would say like a majority of those people who, if they are queer, they may be passing through the ODI offices and the Pride Room like at any given point.
Well, we
So
do-
I've been
we do-
jotting down when folks have kind of identified a networking group or a venue, just keeping that list. It's fluid right now, but I like this generating of ideas because prior to the, what did we call it? Open house? No, meet and greet. Prior to the meet and greet, we said, should we just do one event where people come to us? Or should we do a series of events where we go out to different relevant sectors of this broader town and have several different conversations? And what we said is, let's not do either or, let's do first this and then that. So we had our little meet and greet. And we could even get more savvy from here and say, okay, so if we're gonna do a series, then how do we make one intentionally family focused in the prep, in the publicity, and in the implementation? We could say, how do we join with Orono Pride and do one that's whatever spot and whatever occasion would be best for the people who've organized through that group so far. ODI was mentioned. So is there a time that that campus group is doing something that we can like come into too? And maybe if we have our presenting question or questions that we hope to raise, we can set the question out there and then have the similar conversation, but all these different places and see what happens.
Yeah, I think being able to keep a lot of network points open, I think is gonna be one of our most important sort of setups, because I think that obviously, although we do come from very diverse communities, we may not always talk back to those communities in the same networking way as you might be if you're a part of it versus not a part of it. Because I think that like there's a lot that we can do, like you said, working with the library and focusing on family, like a family event. And I think the thing that's great about having a diverse community, so we can also ask people who like have children, what is your kid interested in? What things do like your kid want to focus on, or are they a screen kid, or they run around, like basically, and then assessing obviously what can we actually let children do. Because obviously you could put them in a room and just say they're loose, but I don't recommend. I think it's good though that we all have networking because it's important. I think that one thing we do obviously want to do going forward definitely is not only like saying here like we got to network, we got to talk to people, but like kind of learning to put a pin in like if you hear somebody talking about like, oh, this and this event, and you can like relate it back, definitely being like, all right, I gotta think about that a little bit later. But I'd love to know if you guys have heard anything in the community about like just general happenings, like what's going on in the world for the people of Orono. I know that there's a big, obviously people are starting to get to like the back to school era. So I've heard a lot about parents being like, ah, yes, school again.
I haven't heard a lot, but I have been very curious about what the reaction to the indigenous community in Orono is to the recent decisions the governor has made, and in terms of vetoing the move to try to get federal legislation to apply to them. So I know I've got some thoughts and reactions to that, and I just often wonder how much our indigenous community is feeling supported.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there's been some, I'm not familiar with this, Sophie or Sonia or Jeff, about the issue of even the name of Orono and Chief Orono and the history there. So I'm just not sure how that all settles on those folks that are native.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's like sort of an example of place where ongoing dialogue and relationship is important. And I know that town staff has relationships and partnerships with the government on Indian Island, and that's ongoing. And also like, it's very true that we're named after Chief Orono, and there's like a really beautiful history here that that maybe we could build partnerships to better highlight and celebrate and That would be like, a conversation or a reach out to leadership on Indian Island to see if they'd be interested in talking with this group about that would be a potential avenue for future inquiry that I'd be really excited about.
And part of that for me would just be learning, learning about how people feel about it, but learning about the history and
Absolutely.
because I'm guessing there's
Yeah.
mixed reactions to it.
I do remember back before I was on the council, maybe Jeff was there, I'm not sure, there I think Chief Kirk Francis and maybe Darren Ranko, there were a couple folks who came and gave a presentation to the town council about some of the history. And that recording is probably accessible and it's something that exists and we could all catch up with as homework for ourselves and might be a good starting place to familiarize ourselves with some of the dialogue that's happened already.
So that was with James Francis, the cultural historian.
Thank you.
And there is a Zoom recording and it's posted on the website. Of course, I don't know the date, so let me find that and I'll pull it up and I'll also link it to the DEIB webpage.
Yeah, good. I'll do a little work. I think that'll be great, because I obviously have only heard briefly about that, and so I was curious myself to see kind of what the outcry has been, because I know that in different parts of Maine, it's louder in some places and not as loud in others. So I think that definitely brings up an interesting point of like, what's going on, I guess. I guess I would call it politically, like basically what things are in place in the government right now that has effect on our different communities. And I know that there's obviously the recent rulings of the Supreme Court, like the discrimination outcome, I guess I'd call that, sure. And I know that one of the big things for me as somebody who's like a big part of my identity is the fact that I'm queer, is I know that I'm watching a lot of young queer people struggle as a result of kind of the layering of a lot of the rights and threatening our rights. And I think that one big thing that I hope for the community soon is like just a breath. Because I know that I've watched a lot of young people be like, all right, like I gotta go to bat for my rights at like 14, 15. And it's crazy to think that that's like, what's going on right now? So like, if you guys hear about different stuff like this, I definitely think it's important to bring it into highlight, even if it's not our own forefront. Yeah.
I was also I hope that there's space to have people also celebrate
Yeah.
places that have been reached for all of the diverse communities that I Orono.
Yeah.
Because I think oftentimes news relies on information that is happening and that is traumatizing, and we forget all of the good stuff that is happening politically today. Governor Mills signed into law LD 535, which allows 16 and 17-year-olds who are eligible to receive gender affirming care without parental consent. And there has been 6 other bills that have passed that are huge wins for the LGBTQ+ community. And I hope that we can like open space to celebrate all of that and more frequently, because I think what you're talking about is really true. And I don't think a lot of queer people know all the good stuff that is actually happening, because I think that would help remind them that positive change is real and that it's not binary, it's not one or the other.
Yeah, I thank you so much for that. Honestly, that's such a valuable outlook, because I definitely, like, I know myself, I can get very swept up in like, oh God, everything's happening all at once. But you're absolutely right. There's so much to celebrate. There's so much that's changed. I recently saw a map that it was a map of the country and then a map of specifically Maine, and it showed in a heat signature the amount of miles away from an abortion provider that you are from anywhere in the state. And the state went from kind of red to yellow to almost completely white. Which meant you were no more than 25 miles anywhere in the state away from a safe abortion provider. And that was crazy. That was from 2013 to like 2023. And it was crazy to see how much better it's gotten. And it's been like that in a lot of other states too. Like even in states where you would think that things had gone the other way, it was still better. Like even in a place like Florida right now, the amount of space between you and an abortion provider who is safe and affordable was not more than 25 miles in most places. And that talks a lot about exactly what you're saying, where it's a good light in the dark.
I think it might be a potential avenue to explore, like making political decisions that are happening in Augusta more accessible to the Orono community. Because I think to navigate the political environment is to be educated about the political environment.
Absolutely.
I don't know what kind of news press we have, but I think if we change the conversation to include like wins as well as losses, I think that would be important for the community to see. I don't know what we have currently.
Yeah, so I mean, again, this is like meeting number 3-ish for what is a new diversity committee for the town. So this group doesn't have like a social media presence or a mechanism really for disseminating information yet, although we did float the idea of like, would we want to have an Instagram? And the town of Orono has a Facebook page and can share things related to
also
town
have an
business,
Instagram.
although I think there's a fine line that sort of a town walks with being a service provider and not an entity that's like foraying into things that are more partisan than makes sense given what the town council, which are the elected leaders who kind of set the tone, set out as the trajectory. So it ends up being like a little bit of a little complicated and some layers, but also like this group exists to be having real conversations about issues of equity and justice that matter. And so hopefully we can feel like empowered to do that in ways that are meaningful and community engaged. I don't know if that sort of answer helped or not.
I think
That's how I'm looking at
something
it.
that I think about is just giving people the tools to do that on their own.
Yeah.
And if we as a committee can provide those tools to the
Mhm.
citizens, that would be beneficial for
Yeah.
us. And,
Yeah.
I would like to say something that I came from Portland about 4 years ago, Portland, Maine. There are 2 Portlands. But as a woman of color in Portland, I didn't really notice it as much when I moved up here. And then it was very isolating and I felt very uncomfortable. And I think one of the things is we're making these decisions about thinking about people of color in our community. There needs to be a way in which we can bring them together. And I just really feel like that needs to be brought out because I personally have sought for that community and I've found bit by bit, piece by piece, but most of us are isolated. And so in the context, I think something where we could have that as a possibility would be really helpful to people of color in this community.
That's
That
huge.
experience.
what role could we play as a committee to allow that to happen?
I would think almost when we're thinking about events, especially we're talking about family events that are inviting multiculturalism, I think finding ways to really make sure that that's very apparent and also inviting families and those with different diversities, I think supporting these individuals and learning stories. I think that's one of the most important, powerful things we can do, not just to have, you're a person of color, but what space do you hold in this community? Because it doesn't matter if you are a person of color next to a person of color, your stories and your culture and your backgrounds, it can be completely different. So I think in the context of this community, really being transparent about the events that we are having and uplifting and building the idea of community within community in Orono.
I also think like hearing what you said, I don't really know of any kind of affinity space that's in Orono specifically for people of color. So I think as a committee, on top of what you just said,
Absolutely.
we could maybe make a space that is an affinity space for people of color.
Yes, that would be so wonderful.
It would be really great.
I don't know if this is the same or convergent idea. One of the venues that was jotted down the night of our meet and greet was in Bangor. It was the main multicultural center. I don't know really the extent of what they do, but if we were to have one of our belonging conversations and the question be, what is it like to be a person of color living in Orono? And that were the featured thing. Where would we like to have that conversation? What place would feel the best?
I love the idea of having multiple venues. I think it's like, just in my time on town council, I've been to a lot of meetings in this room and fewer meetings outside, but I went to a wonderful neighborhood meeting about 1.5 years ago where people just pulled out chairs on a lawn. We had a representative from the town come and meet us, really in somebody's driveway, and there were about 30 of us, and somebody made brownies, and it was really nice. It was it was a very, like, the barriers for entry were really low. That was good. And I was thinking, does the town have spaces that could replicate that? And we have a number of park spaces, outdoor spaces that we can use. So certainly like the town green behind the library, but there's space at Webster. There are other smaller pocket parks around. Many of them are really accessible. So, they have good lighting, they have easy trails or parking and stuff like that. So I always feel like, Orono should be everybody's front yard, right? We should all be able to do it. And maybe that's another opportunity to have people gather together in a place that's a little bit less formal.
Counselor, I'm sorry, can I jump in real quick? I wanted to kind of echo what Counselor Wingard was saying, and he kind of stole some of my thunder there with open spaces or public spaces being inclusive. I think if you don't capitalize on that early, it's going to be an injustice to this committee with getting the message out and talking about what your goals are and getting involvement from the community beyond the niche that you're serving now, if you will. It sounds like you're very focused on people that would benefit from the committee itself. And I think, just from my perspective, I think you need to grow beyond that. Certainly you need to support those people, but getting the rest, getting others who might be questioning or not even aware involved in understanding what it is you do, so you can solicit that additional support as you go. Something else that came to mind to me was we have a farmer's market in Orono, or at least we did. Is it still running, Sophie?
Yep.
That's another great inclusive place where people can connect, and perhaps you can present foods or things from other cultures or what have you. And again, you can market the DEI committee. My thought with the open space, the public spaces, or the park, like Council Wingard was talking about, would be to bring together Indigenous people or people from other cultures or whatnot, to simply say or communicate the message that we're people too. And whether we get involved in games or we have some type of food preparation or those types of things, in my experience, food has always been a pacifier of people. They want to come to food. We tend to talk around food. People gather around food. Great conversation is shared, those types of things. I think, again, just from my mindset, I think that this group might be remiss in letting that go and not recognizing it's a great opportunity to market the committee and draw in. It sounds like you've got some more people there tonight than you normally do. I think it'd be a great way to draw in some additional people that you might not have even thought of or weren't sure what was going on, that would want to support the efforts and be involved with this. So that's my 2 cents anyway.
You just said something I really learned from, though it was kind of a sad learning, but you said the people who won't benefit from the committee. And in my thinking, everybody benefits from this committee, because if we have a greater belonging, if we know what belonging looks like to more and more people, and if we achieve a greater belonging, that's a greater belonging for everybody. So one day, yeah, I hope we do something at the Kiwanis event, because they have a big event every year. I forget when, the end of the summer. That would be an interesting place to do something. They might not, like, it's a niche inside of a community with lots of niches. And the work is between us all. That's what I wanted to say.
Would it make sense, again, not trying to drive your thoughts in any one particular way, but this conversation has really made me think about the barbecue that the Parks and Rec team worked with public safety team to put on for our elderly population.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
all right, who's ready to host the DEIB cookout?
Yeah, well, I just wonder if, we didn't market that as a particular thing. We knew what we wanted and we made sure that it was posted in a place that people from and the senior population would see. If we sent it out over kind of senior networks to know about. But it was a really great opportunity for our public safety staff to connect with folks. I know we're going to do another senior barbecue, but I wonder if in the fall, we might think about trying to do some of what you already kind of talked about, Leah, which is, could you combine multiple things kind of at once and market it towards kids with, we've done, kids games in Webster Park and things like that. So I guess I just leave that as, would it make sense to try to take a resource we already kind of have and marry it with a different purpose?
Yeah,
So,
and is the resource that you're imagining like the capacity for Parks and Rec to throw a barbecue or?
yeah,
Yeah.
cool. I mean, and public safety to assist
yeah.
with that
To
too,
assist with
but
that, cool.
it's more about not telling you what to say or do or who to invite, but rather if we could take the logistics part, wait, and help with that, I think that's something staff would very much enjoy.
Mhm.
And it brings the community together, which is council's priority. So, I guess I just offer.
I love this idea and I'm thinking as a kind of shy person, I wouldn't just go to an event for food. That wouldn't be enough
Yeah.
of an incentive, especially if I didn't know a lot of people. So I think having some kind of event like that, having activities for kids, but then maybe also having some activities for adults too. So that it's like, not just with the meet and greet, it was like, if you're not a person who likes talking, you're not gonna go. So if we have, lawn games, for example, or things where people can engage, but not necessarily have to do small talk, that could be a really great way to get people who feel isolated, but might be interested in doing something if there's an activity.
Or the activity could even be like a conversation prompt
Yeah.
about like, what does belonging mean to you? And what ideas do you have to enhance a sense of belonging in the town of Orono so that people are invited to come like participate in the work of creating what we would like to be as a town.
I love that.
And that's just like an example of a conversation prompt, but that could be part of the activity too, is
Yes, I love that.
participation. Yeah.
I think there are very specific types of people who sometimes they're just ready to talk. I don't know if you guys have ever been to festivals, street festivals very much, but there's always that one booth that's just meaningful conversations. It's literally just a bunch of chairs and people go and they sit in it and they talk to complete strangers. And there's always people in it. I've never gone to a street festival. I went to one 6 years in a row. I've
What do they
never
call
seen
those?
somebody, what?
What do they call those?
They're just called meaningful conversations.
Meaningful conversations.
Yeah, and basically it's just a round of chairs and with a sign in the middle that says meaningful conversations, and people just come and sit down and talk to each other about absolutely whatever they want. And that is so unique because it always works. Like I've never gone past that in a street festival and seen nobody there. It's always at least one, like somebody tentatively sits down and then it goes. And it's like such a unique thing. Because it seems like people like have a certain amount of drive to want to connect with each other. And I think that's something that we should play on. I definitely think a DEIB cookout would be pretty fun. However, I do think that, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Orono Wildlife's Fall Fest. They're up on kind of the far side of Old Town. And they do like a really cute event where they bring like a food truck in, and then they have like different things. Like they had a lady who spoke about bats, and she's loved those bats that she had because she talked for like 2 hours straight, and I loved every single word. It was awesome. But they also have like donuts, and they had like kayaking, and they had a big field of events for like kids, where it was like people who were doing some like educational stuff, and other people were just doing purely fun stuff. And it's a very like, it's an event a lot of families go to. Like, because I think when I went last year, I feel like I saw a lot of families like, and it's not even done in like a big area either. There's only a couple of booths, like the kayaking and the food, and just kind of, they do it obviously in like this kind of clearing area, so it looks really pretty in the New England fall. And I think that that's a good kind of marrying of, everybody has stuff to do, but there's also stuff for the kids to do.
Go quiet one. What networks and venues come to mind for you?
I'm quiet because I don't have any ideas. I'll get there.
Something that I think that would be fun, kind of going back to something you said earlier, I'd love to do like at the start of these, like what's one good thing that happened in the world, like either this week or this month, as like here's a flag of, we are trying to lead the charge in positivity and hope. Because I think like everybody can leave room for whatever amount of cynicism that they need to, but if there is no hope, there is nothing. And I think that, I don't think people are at that, but I don't want to be a force to make that worse. Because I think that the world has a lot of negativity right now because people are struggling with the different aspects of the way the world is existing. And that's okay. But I think, like you said, leave room to celebrate. That's my favorite. That's my new favorite thing. Leave room to celebrate.
And so sharing kind of as a recap for folks who are new tonight, this group definitely is sort of empowered by the town council to figure out how it wants to structure and operate itself. And so baked into that is a lot of flexibility. And during, I think, our first meeting, we came up with some ways that we wanted to treat each other with compassion and respect. And we, at the last meeting, we talked about rotating facilitation duties so that there's not just one person who's in charge, but we each kind of get a turn to hold that microphone. And so Michael, sort of sportingly signed on to facilitate this meeting, and we'll choose someone at the end of this one to do the next. And we certainly have the opportunity to enculturate other ways of being that we want. And so we could totally do that. Like, would we like to have as a practice at the start of a meeting, just a go around of reintroductions for anyone who's kind of coming in, and a celebration of something that seems worth celebrating?
Yeah, and I think the thing that is great about this kind of instance is like, it could be something so small. It could be like, I had a sandwich today and it was such a good sandwich. Like, it does not have to be as existential as like, I have hope for the world. Like, it could just be a really good sandwich or cookies that smelled really good. I don't want this to be a complicated concept, because I think that everything is good to celebrate as long as you want to.
I'm curious what other folks think of that idea of having kind of a check-in practice at the start of meetings.
It'd be a good warm up to get us start talking.
Sure, yeah, try it again next meeting, see if you like it.
Okay, we'll just put it in as celebrations.
Have we calendared our next meetings? Cause I remember we went 2 out and this might be as far as we got.
This
So
is
we
as
say-
far as you got. We
Ah,
talked
ah.
about taking August off and at one point, and I think everybody was quite happy about that. But yeah, and I have the calendar in front of me if you'd like to do that.
So we're looking at skipping over August for like taking a rest for August. We have been pretty consistently on like the second Tuesday. So the second Tuesday, we would be looking at the 12th for September. And do we want to mark that? Good, everybody Gucci?
6 to 5. It's good.
6 to 7:30 seems like a time that most of us aren't having too much trouble with. Obviously, what was it, the doodle, so we sent out?
Yeah, although I will say, it's awesome that we've got like some new folks who might be interested in joining this committee. And if you are indeed interested in doing so, that's very cool. And we'd love to have your schedule input too.
Mhm.
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, because obviously, like, if we've worked out one time and that absolutely does not work for you, we'd love to, we can adjust.
And I wanted to come back to something, Arthur, you said that you had written some things and you would offer them to the committee to read.
Yeah, I gave it to Miss Ward, Miss Ward, Nancy
Oh.
Ward.
Nancy, yeah, so Nancy is Sophie's assistant and hopefully we can touch base and get her to forward that to
Yeah.
us.
I will make that a note.
Yeah, I thought this would be like a sort of like an interview and I'd answer some questions and to see if I'm fit for joining your board. I feel like we're kind of far away from where I envision things to be. I mean, I understand why people want to eat food or celebrate. You know, the suffering is so chronic and intense that you want any kind of conviviality or camaraderie would be great. I understand your desire for that. But, you know, and I'm not religious, but I think we, when it comes to like people in our position, like everyone, not just us, people outside are suffering as well, right? But me, you know, I'm a stigmatized, non-white ethnic gentleman. The gentleman next to me, you know, has mobility issues. That gentleman looks perfect, but he could do with hair like Army Hammer. We have people suffering from aging, people who are ethnic and outsiders, right? And the solution is maybe celebrating, which is great. We want to celebrate as equals. But there's an example of a guy who did something more than just palliative care. You know, palliative care is just if somebody dies, you put makeup on the dead person, or you put a pall or a pall, a white sheet on to hide the dead. And this guy didn't do that. He didn't put makeup on people. He just raised the dead, right? And he didn't go around, you know, telling people that take the lepers and the disabled and treat them as equals. He healed the lepers and the disabled, right? That's not palliative care. That is like real medical care. That should be how justice should be. That is justice, really, equality, bringing people to equality. a dead person raised to equality of a life person, a disabled person raised to equality with the able-bodied, somebody suffering from a skin condition, you know, restored to health. I mean, that's what I envision, you know, and I would like people thinking in that direction, not just accepting your fate and trying to get other people to accept you, which is fine if you are broken, and we are all broken and suffering, but asking for real equality, real justice, you know, I think that's, I mean, it might be a little hurtful to recognize we are behind or we're suffering or we're not equal to others. It might hurt a little, but in the end, you will at least know what goal you're going after and not soothe your pain with temporary medicine, palliative care, which is if somebody's suffering, you give them Tylenol instead of healing them, right? That covers your pain. It does not rectify the real causes that are causing the problems, right? So recognize what the real problems are and ask for real solutions. I mean, otherwise, you know, we all want love and we all come to these gatherings for love, but there will always be people who will try to misdirect you and try to like give you crumbs and, you know, but not be sincerely for your cure, for my cure, for everyone's cure, and for what's good for this country and the world, which is justice, equality. Everyone should be raised to ability and beauty and wealth and inner and outer beauty and prosperity. I mean, I wrote about that and I shared it with this award, but I just thought I'll mention that. You know, I apologize for this long thing.
I really, thank you for sharing your perspective, and I think that there's a real grain, I'm hearing a real grain of wisdom in what you say about the nature of transformational work and how justice work like requires deep transformation, and that's so it's a lot to hold. So I look forward to reading what you sent us. Thank you.
Yeah. It made me think of another question that could be when we're having forums. What hurts?
I mean, everyone is hurting, right? You know, everyone is hurting in some way. That's one of the misfortunes of, you know, ever since that's the post-diluvial after the flood and even prior to the flood, after the fall, you know, it's like there's some kind of, everyone is, as I mentioned, everyone is in some way hurting, right? I mean, I hope that, well, some people are hurting less than others, but I think that, you know, there's the fact that we take some hurts for granted. We take like aging for granted, right? Like, you know, people didn't used to age. Now we take it for granted, a decline in health, our guts coming out or our skin becoming not so wholesome and intact or something, you know, we take that for granted, but probably, I mean, we don't have to, right? I mean, we can look at examples in the past and say that, hey, this is something wrong, and let's start from somewhere and make sure that that wrong doesn't happen in that somewhere and expand outward, rather than just say, you know, it's normal. Let's take it as a new normal. And I don't know if that is, I don't know if I, you know, I mean, I don't know if that is, you know, just like accepting something. I'm not asking for persecution of oppressors. I'm not asking for like rioting or anything like that, right? I'm asking for gentle, kind, truthful addressing the situation, whatever might be, whoever might be suffering, like whether it's women or, you know, even white gentlemen or ethnic people or anyone, you know, everyone is in some way, because of inequality, the oppressor itself is under siege. When there is inequality, even the person who's on top is in trouble. That's the nature of inequality, how destructive it is for both sides, so.
Really appreciate that, all of your thoughts, and something that I'm thinking about very much connected to the idea of, asking about the suffering, asking about the hurt, but also what can we do as a committee to help facilitate healing? Just an inquiry into it. We might not be able to do it ourselves, but I think that inviting people to events or attending those events and having true, honest, and difficult conversations about the hurt, about the suffering, and what can we do as a community, as a committee with the power that we have to help collective healing.
I guess I'd like to maybe make a proposal that moves a little bit in that direction, and that's that we could sort of zero in and start planning a next event. It could be a cookout or a potluck, or something that has food that we broadly advertise. And what if we made kind of belonging and a conversation around that be part of that, and it can be both what sort of active positive thing helps you feel a sense of belonging, and also what holds you back from feeling a sense of belonging, such that there's an opportunity to really reflect kind of in both ways about where we are as a community and how we can move forward, bringing more people into participation and an ability for honest conversation.
So you're proposing that we actively plan something?
I'm proposing that we do, and we're taking the month of August off, I guess, but what if, I do think, and we've been, brainstorming about this at the start of the meeting, but I think it would be lovely to do another community event and start maybe imagining it now so that we can hit the ground running on it once we come back after our break in August. What do you think?
I focus on the word do.
Hmm.
And I was sort of appreciative of Sophie coming in and saying, well, we do this
Yes.
this cookout, because it's like, who's going to be doing the doing? And it's where I was coming from. And we would need to be making some requests.
Yeah.
Departments that report to you to do that. So do we have the authority to do that? I'm assuming there.
Well,
We can make requests.
I guess what I'm saying is the town would be happy to partner in the logistics
Yeah.
of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to step up to drive what you're doing, but I think the base stuff we can help with. Also, if what you're doing requires you guys to meet in August and everybody wants to do that, I mean, just because we said one thing at one point doesn't mean that you can't change your mind.
Yeah.
I will just say from a town supporting things, we would be working towards late September, early October, would be late September, before it gets cold, but super cold, but just because we've planned out through at least mid to late.
Does the town do a open welcoming in September when new students and new people arrive and things? Is there something currently that?
So, no, and I think, one of the things that, there's a lot that happens in terms of public works and public safety, creating a space, but that is not what you're talking about. You're talking about the connection of people.
Right.
And I think if you want to do something like that, we would want to try to, I think, stay away from the business community, because what we've heard from them is that when people are arriving is probably the worst time to try to connect with the business community because they're overwhelmed. And I think if we didn't, that's perfectly fine. We could kind of do something a little more self-contained. You think back to like festival days, which happened in September, but that was a business connection, and part of the reason that people got really overwhelmed and didn't have the bandwidth. But I think a self-contained event probably would work well in September.
What if we did it like a barbecue out back of the library in September, and we're intentional about advertising it through the Office of Diversity Inclusion and the International Student Associations on campus to try to make sure that folks on campus knew they were welcome, and then also advertised it broadly within town. And, you know, the topic is like, welcome back to school and building belonging in Orono.
Yeah, I like it. And I'm thinking about something about like, what's the event? Multicultural festival that happens on a Saturday later in the year.
Yeah.
Something like that where there are.
Culture Fest, it's called.
Culture Fest, yes. So there might be a cookout that's provided for everybody, but I don't know if it'd be booths of different populations to say, hey, welcome here. That's, you know, something to connect people to some of the organizations that already exist. So inviting the university to be involved in that.
Yeah. I wonder if,
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say, if we're thinking about the logistics of making it accessible to the UMaine students, I think we need to focus on having events on campus as well, because like I go to UMaine and all of my friends never go to downtown because they don't necessarily have accessible transportation. So if we're trying to be inclusive towards a younger population, we have to think about where we're actually doing the event. Because it's just not really.
or be providing opportunities to ride pool, which like for the Diversify Whitewater event this past weekend, like I was working with the International Student Associations to be like getting van loads of kids because we wanted to make sure that that wasn't a barrier, but it takes more logistics, it's true.
So, for in September, you're gonna also have the black bear that goes around every half hour. And I think, I might suggest, as much as I love to show off the Village Green because it's awesome space, that Webster Park is a little bit bigger to kind of spread out, but it's also kind of feels closer to campus. And I know that we want to connect with campus but at the same time, I think if you hold events on campus that are community events, you're gonna be less apt to get community members to go to them.
I don't think it has to be either or though, you know, because we can have events in this town and we can also have events on campus. Because if you think about voting too, it's the same way. You can have voting opportunities here, but you can have voting opportunities there. It doesn't have to be one or the other necessarily, always, where you can provide transportation for people. And make it easier.
I think one of the goals that I would have in mind is how do we communicate to new students coming in and new people moving in the community that the town is welcoming you. Sort of, I think that's sort of one of the goals I would have in mind, so that students would come down to Orono more, feel comfortable, feel a sense of belonging in the town. I guess that's what I was in the back of my mind thinking. So I don't think it's either or, but how do we integrate?
I think there needs to be more student representation in this committee and in the council, first of all, because we can't know the needs if we don't actually have the people there to communicate the needs.
There's a student member who's not.
It's true. Yeah, there's a student who's an international student, Carlos, who's home in Mexico for the summer, but
I will also
still,
be a student.
but we could, you're right, stand to absolutely continue building that.
And also one student is just one student, right? Look at how many Orono residents there are who just don't really have a lot of connections with the campus.
Yeah, I'll be a
You know,
student again in the
compared to
fall.
how many student representation. the student representation here. Yeah, I also wanted to like talk about what you were saying. I think when I think about this committee, I think we could also hold designated meeting times to hear about people's concerns. You know, I think that's an opportunity that would be very beneficial. Like we need to have that space here, you know, like have a monthly opportunity for people in Orono and on campus to come to this space and have productive conversations about solutions that could potentially be implemented.
I think that's where you were kind of going when you were asking what hurts, kind of, or like.
But not just through like a barbecue event, but also, but like we can also have that, but also have an opportunity for people to come in here and express concerns.
Feel heard, yeah.
It's like you're doing.
There is associated with student government on campus, a student who is the designated liaison to the Orono Town Council. That person wasn't particularly active this past year, and I think that was a legacy of COVID. But maybe I could reach out to that person and see if there's somebody in that office that we could connect.
I missed who it was.
I don't know the person's name. It's a different person. It will be a different person this year than it was last year. The student government on campus does have a person who is their designee to interact, their liaison with the town, essentially. We hear from them occasionally, and it might be great to, for a lot of reasons, to reboot that relationship. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also kind of connecting this all up is probably really beneficial because then it offers us a chance to sort of like liaisons are there for a reason, so we can kind of funnel ideas and concerns from that community more effectively, I think.
I'm still hearing in my echoing in my hearing, I'm still hearing the phrases like misdirection and crumbs are not needed. And people of color in Orono can feel quite isolated because of numbers. So those two things together aren't leading me to the big old barbecue right away. My vantage point is more like, how would we do listening sessions well, whether here or in places that we can identify to do listening and not try to like fix it all, with the first big thing that we do all in one community. So just I'm letting that sit with me, and maybe in September we could have some problematic. You were just gonna say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I really feel it needs to be a part. And I appreciate the realism that's been presented tonight, but we also need to understand as a part, I would think, of a committee such as this, to be able to provide some sort of structure that allows for students, as we're talking about children and families, to experience the positivity of a culture, of a different, viewpoint. And I think, I really think there's a need for people of color in this community, as somebody that came here, to really have that uplift, to really have that ability to connect and to know where to go when there are concerns. I appreciate that you've brought this up again, because I feel like this, if we miss this, that was really, I don't think that's a good thing.
Alec, where are you going with that too?
I think allowing communities to kind of show off and uplift both their own and teach people about about themselves is such a valuable thing, because I think that no matter what form we kind of present it in, I think kind of drumming up our support and our representation for multicultural communities, I think, is a great forefront to have. I think one of our big things, I think, is we should kind of arrange our priorities and in what order do we think listening sessions and a barbecue. I think I want to hear from you guys. What do we think is on the forefront? What is the top thing we want to address right now? Because obviously we spent a lot of time talking about all the different things, but I kind of want to assess, what do we think we should start with?
Yeah, what are the next steps? I have, I guess, an idea about that, which I'd love feedback on, and that's that I wonder if if these could be the work of a couple of subcommittees or people who want to take on a little bit of additional thinking and coordinating. And there could be maybe a handful of folks who want to start during the next month when we're on break, planning some and envisioning what some listening sessions could look like, and then come back to the bigger group with a proposal for that. And similarly, thinking about a sort of belonging and inclusion event that sets a tone of welcome at the start of the semester. There could be a group that starts to imagine what that could look like and comes back with some ideas about it. How does that feel as a possibility?
I think one of the big things, Sophie, so we didn't schedule an August one at all, yeah?
Not yet.
Okay. Can we get a thought on whether or not we do want to skip August? So like, are we comfortable with a break? Do we want to make it so there's either like a meeting during our usual time later? Like, what are you guys' thoughts? Because obviously, like Sophie said, we made a decision, but I want to recheck in with everybody to see if that's still what the setup is.
And I'm curious about the we too. If tonight there's more we, if after tonight there's a more we, and then also Carlos, so.
I mean,
Maybe
it is only the 11th, so there is time.
Right, I think with your question there, like, are the people that are here tonight interested in this committee, or have you applied to be on this committee, or I'm not sure the status of that, so.
You can also go home and think about it. Don't feel put on the spot, but also feel welcome to say, sure, I'll do it, if you're feeling like, sure, I'll do it.
I would like to be, I honestly, I would like to be a part of the committee simply because I know my own experience and how that has been shared with others who've also had similar experiences being people of color, and especially women of color in this community.
Awesome. And I love your, the fact that your recent experience of coming here, what is it that could have happened or maybe would have happened?
Absolutely. If there was a welcoming barbecue, as you guys are talking about right in this very moment, my entire view of Orono and my entire experience may have been completely different.
So listening session and barbecue seem to be the two.
Yeah, these seem like the same things we're highlighting. I think that if we were going to put some like either subcommittees or internal groups together for ideas or just like simple kind of off the ground brainstorming, I think that's definitely something we should do. Did we ever figure out whether or not we're allowed to have like a group chat thing?
I'm not sure what.
So I think the question is about open meeting law. So under open meeting law, like the town councilors are not allowed to be deciding things over email with each other. The decisions that happen need to happen in a public meeting. And so there are limits about what kind of communication town councilors could have outside of a public meeting. And the intention of that is to have things be transparent. And so there was a question about how this group operates and whether they're bound by some of that same restrictions about like, can we all be on the same group text making decisions, or do we need to decide things during meetings? And I would defer to Sophie's.
So because this is a council appointed committee, you are subject to the same rules as council. So, you know, one of the things that the group might think about, you know, is does this need to be a council appointed committee? Or could this be a committee that the town facilitates happening, that you want to be open to the public and we promote it, but that it is not a council committee? Because we have committees that are community committees that don't have to advertise, don't have to worry about how many people get together, don't have to worry about if they want to have a get together, does it meet regulatory compliance? Is it ADA accessible? Should we be worried about separation between church and state? You know, those types of things that when you're a function of the council itself, you're a public body.
But we do have the opportunity to sort of gently pull ourselves apart.
Well, you can't. I think-
Not formally.
I think that if where you guys want to go is to be a group that is making change and is able to operate in a less formal way, then I think you need to make that recommendation to council, and they need to reconsider what the relationship is. But you know, we ran into this with the initial DEIB committee because I ended up having to ask that question to a lawyer, and they were very clear. 2 or more, when you have more than 2 committee members of an appointed body, council appointed body, it is a public body and it's subject to the same open meeting rules as the town council.
So does that mean that 2 committee members could get together and do some planning?
Yep.
Come back to the meeting with a proposal,
Absolutely,
but no more than 2.
but no more than 2.
Yeah.
And emails that are like, here is information for you to consider for the next meeting are fine. Emails about when can people meet are fine. But emails where people are going back and forth having conversations are a violation of the open meeting law. Like counselors can't talk back and forth about substantive things with groups of counselors. 2 people can.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And the other question I have about this is the membership of the committee sort of, because we all had to apply and be vetted, I assume, by the council.
Yes,
Is that still the case?
that would still be the case unless this committee wanted, I mean, I think there are 2 models, and we talked about it very early on, and it wasn't this council that we talked about it with, but there are 2 very distinctly different models. One is town staff, town resources helping to support a community group that exists separate from the town.
I think a redesignation may be a good consideration. I think that while it's beneficial to designate ourselves as a committee, I do also think that we are a little bit more informal, and I think that letting us sort of be able to informally kind of oscillate around each other is okay. I think I would be kind of concerned about if that limits anything that we have access to. But that obviously is somewhat more of a background town dialogue.
So I would liken this to the former Orono Village Association. So the Orono Village Association was initially created by the Orono Town Council to manage a tax district that is dormant right now. When it was going on, there was always a council liaison or a council rep. There were staff members that filtered in and out as needed to support the work that happened. There were times that the town acted as a fiscal agent. There were times that the town didn't because they went through another process to be their own 501c3. But it was not a council appointed committee. They met at the old inn. They met in people's living rooms. They met at restaurants. And they got a lot of work done. They were a group that the town strongly supported and brought town resources to. So it's 2 different models, and I don't know that there's a right or a wrong. I think the group needs to decide what is most important to it and how it wants to prioritize. And I'm not sure that if you made a decision today that one setup worked best, that you couldn't make a decision 6 months from now to say, okay, we've done what we needed to do and now we need it to be a different way. I mean, I think this is always.
I think if we have that fluidity, that's really great. It's not like a permanent cut thing.
Yeah.
So I think that
What were you holding up?
I was,
You were gonna
oh,
say
I was, this was to the earlier question of appointments, and I reread the town council's charge for this group in preparation for this meeting, anticipating that question about potential new members. And what I learned is that once seated, the committee may provide recommendations regarding new members. However, the town council remains the appointing body. So this group should definitely feel empowered to say, we heard from Danielle that she wants to be on the committee, and you could recommend her to the town council, should you choose to do so, and then the town council could summarily vote on that.
I so propose that we so recommend.
All right.
I second that proposal.
Can we just get a general here?
Here. Yeah, I don't think this group has norms around following
No, we
Robert's
don't.
rules or really has a formal decision-making process yet, which is another thing that it could figure out for itself at some point. But does anyone have reservations about Danielle's recommendation to the town council? Great. I think we'll bring your name forward. Woohoo.
Absolutely, no reservations about Danielle, but we do have other applicants in the hopper too, so
yes.
so I would like to just, however that works, in this, maybe Sonia's job, really, to bring that, do those things to the committee.
So is it possible then that Danielle applies, and if anyone else is interested, you apply and they all go to
Yeah.
the council?
So there are two people who I'm aware of who have applied. One is Gabriel Frey, who I believe is a Penobscot Nation member. And then the other is Arthur, who's here today. And I'm wondering if you want to continue being considered for membership in on this committee, or having attended tonight, are you not feeling it? I'd welcome your discernment on that.
I feel honored to be here, and if you will consider me, why not? You know, I'll tell you, I came here because I wanted to get away from the ethnic and racial disparity in other parts of the country. You know, there's like a lot of like ethnic people who are, you know, just living in their ghettos and concentration camps, and they're insecure, and they feel like they want to be loved, and they think the only way to be loved is to, like, you know, fly their flag. But it's also most important to be open to love and see why this country is great. It has a racial and cultural identity, which is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Christian, and, you know, be open to that and learn that first, you know, before becoming some kind of like a object in a zoo, because usually ethnic people come from disadvantaged backgrounds. If there's anything you have to contribute, it is usually the product of oppression and how you dealt with that oppression. So the idea is to look at what's better than you, why you came to this country, and support that, get behind that, instead of like, you know, love me for who I am. Yes, we are loved for who we are. God loves us, people love us, these people love us. But, you know, also try to understand why someone has gotten ahead in the world and embrace that. You know, there's a confidence in that, there's a self-esteem in that when you say, hey, you know, I know right now that my community and my developed part of the world or developing community is not doing that great, but, you know, I should be more open to serving these people and the cultural and racial identity of this nation, first and foremost, even at the cost of my own life and my own ethnic background or whatever. You know, I mean, that's what I think it's. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I keep getting.
Okay.
Yeah. So So things, just, I'm gonna run a little recap and see what, see if anybody has anything else that we want to contribute. So we talked about, basically, supporting things that are already happening with focus in, multicultural, both, literature, as Danielle mentioned, but, also as like food events and cuisine events. We talked about some of the governmental decisions and how, and Sam suggested that making political decisions and things that are happening both on a state level and a federal level more accessible to the Orono residents, and I think that that's a great idea. I think that bringing people together was a big theme tonight, really breaking away from isolation and figuring out how to make spaces like affinity spaces. We talked about possible barbecue, things like that, getting everyone aware of who we are. We talked about possibly integrating the DEIB and multicultural food and experiences into the farmers market we have in Orono. Talked a little bit about the Kiwanis event, went over the public safety barbecue that kind of Sophie told us a little bit about to kind of have our idea jump off of. Kind of cited wanting to have activities both for adults and for children to really kind of highlight making sure that our events are the best of both worlds. Talked about lots of different questions that we can kind of talk about and that we can go over. What hurts? What can the committee do about the hurt? What holds you back from a feeling of belonging? What gives you a feeling of belonging? Kind of talked about what our next event will be. We're making sure that we're not putting any pressure on the businesses in September since they're very busy with the new influx. Sonia provided some kind of additional push into the idea of the barbecue with the suggestion of being out back of the library and having very intentional marketing. We all kind of talked about like accessibility in terms of what like making sure that we're close enough to UMaine students, both looking at on-campus options and off-campus options. We learned about the student gov liaison, who will definitely have to touch base with. Obviously, either of you guys will probably be one of our best sort of setups for that since you guys are already council members. Talked about listening sessions. I'd love to try and see if there's anybody who wants to break off into any like smaller groups to either brainstorm anything else for answering some of those questions, like talking about the hurt and the feeling of belonging, seeing if there's anybody who wants to talk with each other about any planning for the barbecue, and then if we want to kind of have any more space for conversations about specifically the multicultural representation. So obviously we can, if you guys don't want to volunteer now, we can obviously just see as that goes. I definitely would have you guys take a look at these again if you want to kind of go over some of the stuff that people wrote down with like public parks and homeschoolers and as mentioned before, the main multicultural center. And I definitely think that if we take a look at these and if there's anything we think we should pull from them, we can always kind of toss that at each other coming around the next meeting. I think
I'll volunteer that I would be interested in starting to imagine a back to school barbecue and happy to
Awesome.
work with staff on that.
Does anybody
Does
want
anyone
to
want to,
basically partner up? I
buddy
figure
with
2
me on
people
that?
is probably good. Does anybody else want to partner up with Sonia to take the charge on that? Woo-hoo.
Green team.
Respect, thanks, love that.
And is there anybody who between now and September would want to get together with me and talk more about listening sessions?
Awesome.
Amazing.
I want to be part of that as well, but
Yeah.
like I
You can notice a
wait.
public meeting and just come meet the three of you, and it just needs to get put on the town website. So it's not that complicated. Yeah. just touch base with Sophie about when that's gonna be.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I was writing and missed who was gonna partner with.
I have notes. I have all the notes here. So,
I also was going to suggest that you two can meet in August because my August is insane. And then I can meet after your initial meeting.
so do it in like separate pieces.
Exactly.
That's good, yeah,
Yeah, so
I just want to thank you all for volunteering.
yeah.
Team effort.
I think-
So, no, are we sort of no official meeting in August,
No, okay.
but
Yeah.
subgroup work? That's the trajectory
So,
we're on to
Yeah,
summarize.
I think that we'll take our DID sabbatical of sorts. And we will reconvene in September. What are our thoughts on the so we're good with the September 12th for now. Yeah. All right.
Anybody want to be the captain of that meeting?
Or are we doing like a volunteer or are we playing like a popcorn game?
Ooh, maybe you could pick the next one.
That's
Because you went first.
That's
Is that
what I
what do you call it?
Yeah,
Okay,
like
yeah.
popcorn, because you know, you in school, you would read like a passage and then popcorn to the next person.
All right. I didn't know that was what popcorn meant to somebody, so.
It is now.
I guess it.
Well, there may be an issue of time.
But you,
energy,
it's like,
and
who do
resources.
you get to pick on? I mean, who do you get to pop up?
Like basically we just choose. I think that a good leader for our next meeting, it would be Leah.
It's the beginning of the semester and it is
It's fine.
insane for me. I would be happy to do it the following month,
So like
October.
October, okay, that's fine.
If someone would be willing to do September
It
instead.
does seem like if you go in the direction of people volunteering, they're assessing their own time, energy and resources to be available.
Well, then we'll do that then.
Yeah, if-
Does anybody have the space and open availability to be the leader for our next meeting?
It's a game of killer.
I will also offer, if anyone is feeling nervous about the mechanics of facilitating a meeting, but otherwise would step forward, I'd be happy to like walk you through what that process would look like.
Yeah, I will also do so because I sort of just went for it today and it's been fun.
But I'm also happy to
been
facilitate the
fun.
next meeting if there aren't any bites on that.
Well, if anybody is particularly apt to it and just does not want to do it today, that's fine. I'm sure you can just put out I'll do it in an email because that's not a whole conversation.
All right. So I'll think about working with Sophie to build an agenda and circulate that, but if anyone has agenda items that might not occur to me, feel free to send them my way.
Yeah, I have a full,
That's what I was.
That's what
just
you were gonna say.
yep.
Okay, great.
I have a full note sheet for today. so I'll send that
Wonderful.
to
Thanks so much for taking notes.
The only other thing I would say is if so Sam and Danielle, we don't have applications for you and that is part of the process. If you would like to either leave me your email address today, I would be happy to send you one or the link. Or you could go online, either way, but it sometimes can be beast to manage the website. We're working on it, but if you leave your email with me today on this pad of paper, I will get you stuff this week. And Arthur, we have yours.
And for homework, we'll all watch the video in the link that Sophie's
I
gonna
will
send.
send that out. That will come out this week, maybe not tomorrow, but this week.
It's nice to see you all today. Thanks, Michael, for
you.
facilitating.
Yes,
Thanks
thank you.
to new
You did a
friends
great
who
job.
joined us today. It's really, really lovely to be with you all.